Yo, all the time. Just did 10 in the pen. About to spit this game for you, fool.
These niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that.
I need me a lick to come up on 100 G's.
How I be?
Moving these fucking keys.
Where I be?
Run them in that UPT.
And who gon' run them?
The brother in my BG.
You gotta be.
And niggas my lady.
Four goes and I'm out.
Fell baby. I hit my safe for 150 G's.
Why, nigga?
Ordering for 20 keys.
Street value.
250 G's.
And what's your price?
I lick for 100 G's.
My people, baby, about to bring some heavy Snow White. All this coke, I'ma have to go on an all-month flight. Fuck breaking down 20, breaking QB. Zip, lock 'em up and ship 'em to that UPT. Never seen a triple beam in so much, yeah. All this coke spells nothing but mail. 100 G's with ease, well, let's go bring drama. I keep packing shit, you getting isolated with mama. Too many keys, bringing racks and gats and Cadillacs. But through thick and thin, yeah, got my best. Niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that.
About to break these keys down, water keys. Let vamp run them all in that third wall UPT. KC, drop this load on my BG.
10 a key.
Bring me back 100 G's. Get your shit.
Nigga, I got my shit.
I'm ready to cock your shit.
I'm ready to pop my shit. I'ma take your bread, introduce you to debt. When you get the hell, tell him I'm from fight with your man. I'm tired of flipping these hundreds. I wanna flip some G's. Hook us up with baby.
Graduating the keys.
We gon' make this shit happen. We gon' flood them out uptown. And we gon' bring a sprinkle a little bit downtown. We're right legends with the terror. Momos on Camaros. Slim got the coke in the wayside barrels for 22.5.
Alpha keys for 11.5.
Come to the BG, I might do it for even 5. Nigga, I ball, but people don't know it, cause I don't show it. The only way you find it is if you come stow it, cause I don't stuff for no hoe and flow show it. 23 codes, I get a bucket and keep it on the down low. These niggas don't understand that he the
And
man.
on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the
And
man.
on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that.
Never outer, money in a powder. Nigga moving shit uptown, the crowd. Who got the sprinkle to make your ass ring? Dope fiends and old jeans, body tango. Chickens in a cutting supreme. Young hoes dream. Cash rules everything in town, know what I mean? Snow like Alaska, wanted in Nebraska. Bitch try to testify, straight blaster. Cakes in a ammo, modern day Rambo. Got a Glock with some rocks in a gram hoe. Got a Maserati, funky like John Gotti. Red beam on the scene, leaving bloody bodies. I got this shit wrapped up. Manny Fresh, the special man, aka Big Nuts.
These niggas don't understand that he the
And
man.
on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the
And
man.
on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the
And
man.
on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the
And
man.
on the down low, I'm still selling birds. Nigga.
Yeah, I told me that.
All the time, UPT, that's me. 1 BG,
Represent.
Larry J, Big Gerald KC, and L, Vamp, that Mouth Mac, Calio,
It's
suck
all good.
bitches.
Yep, gangsters in the building. Yep, gang. Yep. We Japanese still. You getting cooked in front of your family like a Japanese meal. It's y'all shoot the hibachi and none of you niggas can stop me. Today's topic, bruh, is Reggie. Reggie, we're gonna have to have a conversation. We're gonna have to have a conversation, brother. And this conversation is warranted, brother. I've heard some very racist, hateful things come out this man's mouth in the video that we're gonna play. Right? The video that we're about to watch together, this man is basically spewing hatred for North Africa. And this is why I tell people, these people that claim to be African or Pan-African are not really pro-Africa or not Pan-African. Because if you're Pan-African, Pan means all. Africa is the continent, right? That includes the territories that are dominated by the Berbers, the Amazigh, North Africans or whatnot. And in this video, he's pretty much poo-pooing on all of North and East Africa. And I told you guys this. These Afrocentrics are racist. I told you guys this. They're basically saying light skin Africa, or wherever you find light skin is the enemy. That's pretty much what he's saying. Like the Berbers, the Amazigh. He even threw the Ethiopians in there and saying, "Oh, Ethiopians were slavers. They were slavers. West Africans were slavers. The Dahomies were slavers. The Yoruba were slavers. The Igbo were slavers. We had the brother from Cameroon on here saying that they had to run and hide in the mountains." You know what I'm saying? Because slavery was such a big commodity in Cameroon, and Africans were doing it. We read the book about the Anlo. When the Anlo, after the British, pretty much abolished slavery, the Anlo wanted to continue to keep, trading slaves, and they did it illegally, right? So a lot of nefarious things happen in West Africa as well. All of the West African states that we bring up had slave traders in it. There were slavers. So when you bring up that history, all you're doing is rebel rousing and trying to incite the people's emotions, because all you got to say to black people is slaves, and they start crying and whining and moaning, but your ancestors were involved in slavery too, okay? Like, cut it out. And then his argument is, oh, these people in North Africa are not Africans. They got there late. So we're going to deal with that today. We're going to deal with that. Man, come on, man. We're going to deal with that. Yap gang in the building, more in the building. Yap, let me know if you want to be on the show, brother. I'll let you up. Kedrick Shalom, brother. Yap. Safik in the building. Shout out to all my people. Yeah, man, there is E1B1A in Libya and in North Africa, period. But there's E1B1B there, and that's what we're going to talk about. You understand? And here's the thing. African Americans, I can't stop saying this, right? African Americans, and Reggie, you might be one of those individuals. There is a large percentile of African Americans that descend from Europeans. You would accept them and not our actual paternal brothers that live in North Africa and East Africa. You guys are sick, man. This racial schema that y'all have made up here in America and Europe has pretty much destroyed you when you try to deny your familial ties. This man said that, oh, these people had nothing to do with ancient Egypt. GTFOH, Reggie. GTFOH. They have everything to do with it, because E1B1B was running from North Africa into Levant back and forth for thousands of years. What are you talking about? Hello, the Green Sahara. Hello, EM123. Hello. And this is why genetics is important. Because when you deny genetics, the one field that elucidates ancestries, you come up with these crazy racist doctrines like the one that Reggie is about to showcase. Yeah, man, we got to start seeing people's haplogroups. Hey, Reggie, we will sponsor your 23andMe kit so we can see what your Y-DNA is. You might be haplogroup I. We don't even know. And you talking this African shit and trying to delimit other people's African ancestry, right? And trying to exclude other people's African ancestry. When you might have haplogroup I, you might be a Sardinian or something. We don't know. And you have the audacity to come on Sarnetta's channel and spew this hatred, right? And everybody that's in the audience, they're just like church members. You know, when they go to church, you know, saying they in there, amen, amen, that's right. You know what I'm saying? They rooting, they hollering, they streaming, they excited, right? And then after the church service ends, you ask them, what did you learn? I don't know, but it was good. That's the same thing that goes on Sarnetta channel. It goes on a lot of these channels. These channels are not about education. I can't say this enough. These channels are pretty much indoctrination. That's all it is. And all you guys want to do is indoctrinate people on this race baiting, colorist bullshit that you guys been pushing for years. You know, so when they mention all these guys, these elders in the community, these people are racist. They reverse engineered white supremacy. That's all they did. But when we look at the facts, when we look at now, thank God for DNA, we can actually elucidate the ancestry now and see who we are related to paternally. And these people that we're related to paternally have always lingered around North Africa and the Near East and in the Levant. They've always done that for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So let's get into this video. You understand, and listen to racist Reg give his presentation, and you guys will see for yourselves.
But it is just
Before I start, disclaimer: his audio is low for some reason on this video. I don't know why. So you guys just bear with me. I don't know why his audio is so low, but hopefully you guys can hear it. And before we start, let's read the Fair Use Act. We are covered under the Fair Use Act here. So Section 107 of the Copyright Act provides the statutory framework for determining whether something is a fair use and identifies certain types of uses such as criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. I will be giving my commentary. I will be critiquing, and we'll be using this video for teaching, scholarship, and research purposes. All right, so let's get to it.
the truth. If you don't know me, my name is Brother Reggie. I am a researcher. I am a true student of Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Professor James Small, Dr. Joseph Benjo Canning.
All those people you're naming, Dr. Ben, James Small, Jeffries, all these people, I guarantee you, if I go and read their works, it's going to be some element of racism in it. And this is where these guys are the background that these guys are coming from. This is the background that Israelites are coming from. This is the background that Afrocentrics are coming from, atheists. All these people in this messed up community that we call the conscious community have a racist overtone, right? And they're getting it from these older guys. And what it's doing, it's stymieing, it has stymied the scholarship. That's what it has done.
Dr. John Henry Clark, Professor Edward Scobie, and and I've had other professors along the way. I worked 5 years at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black
You
Culture.
guys bear with the audio. That's from the
I have
original
been
video.
involved in several federal cases. One is a litigant myself, so I do know the law. And I've just bought a good friend of mine a full course to summary judgment motion, and the summary judgment motions are in on the side of the defendants who he is suing, and we put in a partial summary judgment on retaliation. I am going to talk about law. I'm going to talk about populations, and so let's get into it. So let me share my screen. And Sarnetta, thank you for your time doing this. I know we've been going back and forth trying to get a date for this, and thanks for squeezing me in. Disclaimer: the information presented here is for educational information. All used material, the property and copyright of the original scholars and scientists who published the material. I make no ownership rights, and will ask the video to be taken down from any complaint of a publisher or author. But I am doing this in fair use. The presentation is created to equip an uninformed generation of African people, descendants of the continent of Africa, about the depopulation of Africa during the trans-Saharan slave trade.
I'm sorry, I had to stop this to make this comment, man. When you start watching these guys, everybody else can be African except the actual Africans. Y'all notice that? Like the 30 to 40% of people that actually descend from Europeans, y'all just like, oh yeah, they African. The actual pharaohs that had haplogroup R, they're African. But the people that actually got African ancestry paternally, you guys tell them, nope, they're not African. Get the fuck out of here. What's wrong with you guys? You guys are weird, man. You guys are weird, and you're disseminating misinformation. And you're basing everything off skin color. Oh, those people are not dark like us, so we're gonna say, Reggie, you're light skinned. What are you talking about? Again, I have to say this again. The people that actually descend from African men for thousands and thousands of years, we're talking about going back 24,000 years ago at the end of the last glacial maximum. We're talking about people that lived in the Pleistocene. We're talking about people that lived in the Holocene. We're talking about the Middle Stone. People that live in these periods for thousands and thousands of years. You truncate their ancestry, but you accept people that are pretty much newcomers in Africa or people that descend from slave masters as Africans. You guys are weird. And your methodology sucks, and it's based on a racial schema given to you by a German. How about that? Put that in your pipe and smoke it. What the hell wrong with you guys?
Probably many of you do not know, but this last week during the Supreme Court hearings of the confirmation of the candidate for the Supreme Court nominee, the sister, they mentioned the professor. I'm not going to mention the professor's name, but we know who the professor's name is. And they mentioned that she was part of some young students at that time at Harvard who asked this professor to come and speak at the same podium that El Hajj Malik El Shabazz Malcolm X spoke at. And
well, Reggie made it into a DC comic. Good, because you're a cartoon character. You cartooning right now. I'm glad you made it into a DC comic. You're a very cartoon character. A lot of the things you have said in the past has been very cartoonish. Okay, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney, all that. Okay.
Mixed with a particular religious group. And that they was there to do a protest, and it looked very violent. And we got caught up in the fray. One of my young soldiers, he just happened to be a comic book writer, and he wrote his story. So in DC Comics, over here, DC Digital First, as they embark on NFTs and they embark on the digital economy, Europeans have created. So I just put out one little clip of the comic. You can find it in Kindle. But your brother Reggie is in the DC comic book world as a human superhero.
I agree, Reggie. You are in the comic book world.
Brother Reggie.
You think like a comic book.
Ignorance is no excuse on understanding ancient Egypt 2022, the ignorant Africans. The chief, the anti-theist, the craftsman, the barber, the architect, the Miss Young revolutionary, the pseudos, the Abrahamic religions, and the groupies. You're going to get a lesson today. There exists amongst Black America a collection of middle-aged men now in social media who feed into scientific and religious racism to erase the genocide of the African during the invasion, murder, rape, exportation.
Hold on, I got to comment on this. This might be a long one. So he's basically saying, of course, everything's an attack on Abrahamic religions and faith, right? Even though that's what proliferated the world, even though that's what gave the upstart and the spark to modern science, even though, what have you, right? And he's saying there exists among Black America a collection of middle-aged men in social media who feed into scientific and religious racism. Here's the thing. You are the one who is feeding into scientific and religious racism when you teach that the people of North Africa, which he's going to go into, I'm going to let him say it, are, not related to Africans or not Africans. That's scientific racism. That's religious racism. That's what you're doing. Right? It's so ironic that you made this slide, but it applies and it's applicable to Reggie. It says, racism. They said they're using this racism to erase genocide of the Africans during the invasion, murder, rape, and exploitation of the Africans. because they are ignorant of a rarely studied part of history. They fuel misinformation of the true effect of the invasion of Africa and the trans-Saharan slave trade. And that's your problem. Your mind is stuck on trans-Saharan slave trade, period. History for black people, for you, pretty much starts in the slave trade. But these peoples were already in Africa tens of thousands of years prior to the trans-Saharan slave trade, prior to Arabic even being speaking, prior to the Common Era. So what are you talking about? This whole thing is your form of rebel rousing to get people into their emotions when you see murder, rape. Oh yeah, Africa was murdered and raped and they were sold. Yes, they were. That's a part of human history. That's a part of human history. So what are you talking about? That gives you the right to demarcate someone's ancestry. Get the fuck out of here. So you're going to demarcate the Anlo people of West Africa, the Dahomey, the Yoruba, the Fulani. You're going to demarcate them and say they're not African because they were involved in the transatlantic slave trade. They captured slaves. They had slaves on plantations, right? They had house slaves. And they were doing it even after the European abolished slavery. They continued to trade slaves and conduct slave raids after Europe had abolished slavery. So does that mean they're no longer African, you ass? Does that mean they're no longer African? Did they lose their African ancestry? You guys are nuts. This is why I have to keep reminding grown-ass men that you're arguing situations and things that happen while we're alive. That does not affect biology. Biology is determined by who you sleep with and have babies with, not the actions of that individual. Biology is determined by genes. You have germ cells and somatic cells. Your germ cells is pretty much your sperm and egg. Your somatic cells are all the rest of the cells that make up your hair, your blood, so on and so forth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of it has a copy of DNA. That has nothing to do with slave trading. It has nothing to do with what Bible you read or what religion you follow. I have to keep beating that into y'all heads because y'all keep trying to conflate the two. And like I said, West Africans were very integral in the slave trade. They played a huge part in it. A huge part. And they sold their own peoples and they sold other peoples they were warring with. Same thing happened when the colonial forces came to the Americas. The Native Indians were already fighting with each other and selling each other as slaves prior to the Europeans got here, and the Europeans just used that as an advantage, right? So if we're going to truncate people's ancestry because of their involvement with slavery, then you're going to have to damn near do all of West Africa. You nut.
And depopulation of the continent we call Africa. Because they're ignorant of a rarely studied part of history, they fuel misinformation of the truth that affects of the invasion of Africa, which is the trans-Saharan slave trade. The peoples and direct descendants of the continent called Africa, we have no friends. The Hebrews, Christians, Arabs, and the Europeans have created multiple thought diseases to separate us from the peoples of Africa and to keep us from being unified, as they have historically raped, murdered, depopulated, and destroyed our people, often using our own peoples as tools when they themselves become infected with this. All
right, so let's say this, because I know the audio's low, so let's read what he said. The peoples and direct descendants of the continents of Africa have no friends. Again, this is all emotional. This is an emotional spiel here. This is not academic. This is emotional. No, they have no friends. They're being tortured. Shut the fuck up. How are you supposed to learn from this? All you're trying to do is teach people to react emotionally and not logically, right? It said the Hebrews, Christians, Arabs, and the Europeans have created multiple thought diseases to separate the peoples of Africa from being unified as they have historically. But you're the enemy of Africa right now, because you're about to say the Amazigh and the Berbers are not Africans. What the hell is wrong with you? And then you even attacked Ethiopia. But you want to talk about they're trying to stop them from being unified. Bro, you are disrespecting Africans throughout this entire presentation. That's why I told you guys, these people that claim to be Pan-African are not paying nothing. These niggas is American racists. That's all they are. An American racist. Are there people in Africa that do bad to other Africans? Yes. But to sit up and act like that you are the arbitrator of unification of Africa when you're disrespecting and telling people that they're not African because of the history of slavery, but not using that same rubric to test the West Africans and apply that to West Africans, shows that you're full of sugar honey iced tea. So let's read it again. He says the Hebrews, Christians, Arabs, and the Europeans have created multiple thought diseases to separate the peoples of Africa, which you're doing right now, from being unified as they have historically raped, murdered, depopulated, and destroyed our people, often using our own people as tools when they become infected as if they are zombies. Now I want to say this as well. Murder, depopulated, destroyed. Did West Africans do that to other Africans? Yes. Did they historically rape, murder, depopulate, and destroy other Africans? Yes. Yes. Who are the Tuaregs? The Tuaregs, oh, they had slaves. Okay, who are the Tuaregs? The Tuaregs are E1B1A and E1B1B. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. We all, regardless of how we treated each other, that has nothing to say towards our lineage and where we come from and who we come from. Dumb. You're not a teacher. You're a rabble rouser. You're just trying to get people in their feelings and their emotions. But everything that you said in this paragraph applies to West Africans. You do understand that, dumb? It applies to African Americans. Many of them that you accept. African Americans had slaves. African Americans raped. African Americans depopulated and destroyed our people. We read this in the book, The Negroes Are Our Slave Masters. We read that. It says in that book, in the introduction, many of these black slave masters were just as bad, if not worse, than their European counterparts. Again, this is why I have to keep reminding y'all. It's a biological argument versus a situational argument or the actions of the people. That's two different things. They're diametrically opposed to each other, and you're trying to conflate them. This is the idiocy that gets supported by the black American. This is why a majority of y'all vote Democrat. Y'all support idiocy and counterproductive motifs. You're a sucker for it. Because this is exactly what politicians do. They get up there and say, oh, racism is bad, but many of these people support the privatization of prisons. They support not giving your children that live in these urban areas many education options. They want to keep them stuck in their zip code, don't want to give them school choice. They support these things. All these things that cripple you. The prison to school pipeline, they cripple you. They're counterproductive. And telling people to be victims does not help them. You follow this emotional rhetoric instead of logical steps to recover your communities. This is what has been destroying us. Thomas Sowell was right. You're not pushing no damn unity. You're not teaching Pan-Africanism. You're teaching racial schema. That's all you're doing. Because what it boils down to is what many of the people of Germany and many people of Europe, European scholars were saying in the 17th, 18th century, bringing up that scientific racism that you brought up earlier. that sub-Saharan Africa is the true black Africa and North Africa is white and European. You're regurgitating that. And it's supposed to be revolutionary. We've been hearing this shit for 30, 40 years. Israelites teach it. You teach it. All these people teach it. And the spirit of Blumenbach lives and speaks through you. You know, damn Africa, you're teaching a German doctrine. The hell wrong with y'all? And we don't even know who this guy is. You guys love to say that we shit. You're not even related to us, probably. Our this, our people. No, speak for yourself. We don't know who you are. Post your DNA test, man. Since you want to try to demarcate other Africans and tell them that they're not African, how about you prove that you're an African first? Let's start there, Reggie, Reginald. Let's start there. How you gonna go and try to delimit and demarcate a whole swath of peoples, and we don't even know who you are? I can tell you that I'm African. I'm EU 290 and L3. Okay? My marker was involved in the Bantu agricultural expansion. All right? I can tell you that. L3 been there 70,000 years. I can tell you that. So we need to see who this guy is, man. I need an ID on this guy.
Disease, and they become zombies. In addition, there are societies of secrets of black people who have joined the societies of secrets of the European oppressor who keep us in darkness. Not in darkness, but in ignorance to protect their way of life. I won't call your organization's names, but you know who you are. However, one of our own on our platforms who is a known member of one of these groups has run his damn ignorant mouth on the subject by questioning with no research of his own. Either he knows the truth and is protecting something, someone, or being a servant, or your organizations that taught him, that initiated him, have failed in teaching the truths of what is public about you. And I've listed some of the tenets of one of your organizations. And so if he is one of your own, not having selfish interest, vanity is dead for them, anger is no longer their master, they're not the slaves of possessions, not afraid to act with courage in their convictions, a real person, seeing the viewpoints of others, his emotions are always positive. He uses his imagination for creative, not destructive purposes. He does not belittle or slander others. Each day he aligns himself with his inner teachings. If you have taught him and them this, you have failed, and it is just lip service. There's another powerful group. Let's call them just the aristocratic advisory body, and later a representative senate. I'm saying to your group, stop thinking about your own kind, whatever that is, right? And produce another Du Bois, produce another King. Don't produce Negroes with property and power that control things, that buffer our people from what we should have. I think if you do research, family, you know the groups that I am talking about.
You're not just wrong, you're stupid.
Have lost their way. They have stopped devoting themselves to the ideas of their people's liberation. They care about the possessions.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. They stopped the ways of their people's liberation. Reggie and all you guys are liberals and you support Democrats. Those are party of pro-slavery. And I got to bring the political aspect of it too, because these people try to, feign themselves as intellectuals. If you were so, so hard on liberation, you would deal with the people that liberated you. The people that liberated you, the party that was for abolitionists, that were pro abolition, right, was the Republicans. And most of y'all support modern day liberal motifs, democratic motifs. So get the hell out of here. You're not for the liberation of our people. You don't even teach that as history. You guys don't even bring that up. You guys are full of sugar, honey, iced tea, and you know it. You push counterproductive motifs and policies, right? You teach our people to be very racist and hating of Africa. Y'all actually hate Africa. Y'all keep talking about Pan-Africans. You actually hate Africa. You hate the history of Africa. You hate the people that are there that are Africans, right? That don't fit your racial schema that you got from a German. You hate them. Again, counterproductive. So what part of this is, teaching our people anything? It's not. They were already exposed to racism. They already knew about racism. Many of them are racist. How is this, making them rise above? How is this being an luminary? None of what you're talking about is illuminating the people's minds and thoughts. It's just bringing them down into a stupor. Like I said, this racial schema has stymied the scholarship of our community. Let's go.
If you do a little research, you know who I'm talking about. The lies Africans are telling to their people today. 1. The sub-Saharan Africans, Nubian, Nilotic people were not the ancient Egyptians. 2. The Egyptian people today are the pyramid builders. 3. If there was a large black population in Egypt, where did they go?
All right, so let me address this. Sub-Saharan African, Nubian, Nilotic peoples were not the ancient Egyptians. First of all, that sentence lets you know that he thinks like a 17th, 18th century European. Because when he says the Sub-Saharan African, Nubian, Nilotic, he groups all of these peoples together. He groups all of them together. Who are these people? Delineate these people. How do you know they were there during that time frame of pre-dynastic Egypt, dynastic Egypt? How do you know this? Again, this is all race baiting. Oh, I'm just going to group a bunch of people that I know are black or have dark skin together and say that they represent the ancient Egyptians. This is not scholarship. This is not collegiate. This is cartoon shit. And this is why you was put in the comic book where you belong. You belong in DC Comics. Oh, Hanna-Barbera ass nigga. It says the Egyptian peoples today are the pyramid builders. Well, what's wrong with the Egyptian people today? Oh, they got Eurasian DNA. The ancient DNA the ancient peoples of Europe had a Eurasian component. Hello, Akhenaten was Haplogroup R. Hello. There were Eurasian people living in the records tell you that. The Egyptian records tell you that. Let's keep going. It says, if there was a large black population in Egypt, where did they go? Maybe, some of them left. Maybe some of them stayed. Like it intermarried and intermingled, and they are the people that you see today. What's wrong with that? Oh, well, those people white, they Arab. But when they do their DNA tests, they go back to Africans. There's a large percentage of them that go back to EM78. Numbskull. Again, you're using phenotype and color to make your argument. You're not using anthropology. You're not using archaeology. You're not using genetics. You're not using demography. You're using how people look today to determine whether or not they're Africans. You're a joke, man. You ain't no goddamn Pan-African. You're a pan-racist. Fuck is this nigga talking about?
The intellectual slave trade of information again. We are our own worst goddamn enemy. The arrogant, the ignorant Africans are going to be a...
Yeah, you are. You are a worst enemy. You are the worst enemy to Africans. You might be European. We don't know your DNA, Reggie. When you try to classify a whole swath of black people together as the same, that let me know all together. When you don't allow black people or for black people diversity, I already know that you're racist. You're racist towards black people. All black people. So the Nubians are the same as West African blacks. Is that what you're saying? Ancient Nubians are the same as West African blacks? Reggie, how many haplogroups are in West Africa? Can you even tell me? These are different lineages. They're not all the same. You got A, B, E, J, and R. They're not all the same. Then you got T. You're just clumping everybody together that has a certain phenotype. You're not using demography. You're not using anthropology. You're not using archaeology. And you're damn sure not using genetics. You're just saying, oh, there goes some black niggas. They all the same. That's some racist shit. That's racism. And it ain't African. That comes from Germans. That didn't come from no ancient African. The ancient Egyptians did not teach that shit. Goofy. Oh, all black people on the earth are the same. They don't even know what that concept is. That's alien to ancient peoples. That's some modern European confabulation. And you're supposed to be a doctor. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're a pan-racist, not a pan-African. Fuck is you niggas talking about?
Mass today and put in the ash can of history and the YouTube world. Let's get to this. So, Sarnetta, I am angry. I'm angry at our people's ignorance. We've had great scholars, but they haven't been great students. Last week, lie number 1 was destroyed. That who were the ancient Egyptians was destroyed by our brother Bobby Banger, Bobby Body Bag, Bobby Baltimore, Arc West, and now Bobby Paramaniac, and myself with some slides from Jed and Mark from my museum tour, murdered the head chief on the origins of the ancient Egyptians. The head chief of the Mediterranean Egyptian origins, not being black, died and was funeralized, and he is a ghost. And you know what we do here, Sarnetta, we make you ghost. His crew of apostles, that's the anti-theist Fuller, the Mr. Line You Up Barber, but I respect the barber. He just tries to line you up. The pseudo-architect, the worst, the food science Mason, could not resurrect their savior. He's a ghost. However, we're indebted to the chief for bringing this controversy up, but Bobby Banga hopefully will come on this show and talk about his flawless victory. Muslims, Moors, Muslims, Hebrews, Hebrew Israelites, Christians, Masons, Muslim sons, Asiatics, Comedics, historians, debaters, continental Africans, Africans in the diaspora, and the conscious community. I hope that you're all in this building like this is just a preview of something that you may get tomorrow when Dr. Malik Zulu Shabazz and Captain Tazariak of ISUPK come with the Commanding General Yahana is going to be in the building tomorrow. And this is just a preview of some things to think about. So last week, Bobby Banga, Bobby Body Bag, destroyed the head chief, right, of Egypt not being black, sub-Saharan, African. He actually destroyed it with this one slide. The traditions and languages, this slide is in the Brooklyn Museum, currently on display, so that you can go and see it. The traditions and languages of the Saharan Nilotic population largely shaped the development of the ancient Egypt and Nubia into the great civilization we know today. In fact, many traits that were once viewed as essentially Egyptian were first attested in Nubia and are thus rooted there in the desert cultures to the south and the west of Egypt. The nomadic pastoral way of life adapted in Egypt and other North African cultures was first established by the most ancient Nubian people, sub-Saharan black people, people with melanin. Similarly, the shared vocabulary of Afro-Asiatic languages which
You see what he keeps doing? Sub-Saharan black people. What's the haplogroup of those Nubians, Reggie? Dr. Reggie, do you know? Have you even studied the Nubians? Did you even study the pre-Kerma population to know who they will be predominantly be, what the high prevalence of people there be during that time frame? You didn't. You didn't. All you see is black people. They be like, oh, that's us. All black people ain't the same, Reggie. That's some racist shit. To when you look at a black person anywhere in the world, oh, they us. No, they not. They're haplogroup AM13. Majority of African Americans are haplogroup E. That's a separate people, man. Oh, they black, they us. Goofy, man. Cartooning again.
includes ancient Egyptian, points to the origin of these languages to the south of Egypt. The Brooklyn Museum has an exhibition that is important on the Green Sahara, where they talk about the origins of Egypt. The Metropolitan Museum of Art has an exhibit called The African Origin of Civilization, where they talk about Africa being the origin of civilization and the importance of ancient Egypt. Both these museums have thrown down the sword of white supremacy and have said that Africa, ancient Egypt, is in fact a culture of indigenous African people. So why do the servants now continue to lie? This article follows up with Unc West, Bobby Benger said. You will see it in probably the next book of Cambridge series on Egypt and Africa. It's called Egypt in its African Context, and it's by Maria Gamelo Gatto. And I'm not going to read it all, but I'm just going to show you can look it up here. The Nubian pastoral culture is a link between Egypt and Africa, viewed from the archaeological record. And this is an important article that sums up what was happening in what is called Nubia, right? Upper and lower Nubia, and to the west, to the desert, and what was happening in places like Chad, that you can get to through the Wadi Howard, which is the Yellow Nile. It was a major part of the
They
Nile.
put a one in the chat if you can actually hear him.
The culture and civilization that began the march to Egypt. Egypt is just a daughter of great civilizations that was before it. I messed this up. Lie implication number 2. The modern Egyptians are the original population. So that should be number 2.
Hey, where Ngozi at? Because he got your name here, right? He said, here, I disagree in part with Unc West, Ngozi, and Gullah Geechee. I will supply my evidence. But here's the thing. What Ngozi is showing you is scientific methodology. He's showing you that these people that are there, just it don't matter how they look, their DNA is there. Their DNA is found in mummies. Like, what are we doing at this point? If their DNA is found in mummies, Reggie, that means their ancestors were there. Okay? You can't change that because, oh, I don't like how those people look. Reggie, you're light-skinned just like them. What are you talking about? You're a fucking light-skinned man. Hey, what, you ain't African because you light-skinned now? Get the hell out of here, man. This is cartooning, man. This is high-level cartooning. This ain't scholarly. Oh, I'm against them for saying that the original population of Egyptians are the ancient ones. They were there anciently. How you gonna get mad at that? Let's watch this bozo, man.
Here I disagree in part with Unc West, who has said that the Egyptians there, that they are in fact have some connection to the Nile Valley ancient Africans. I disagree slightly with him. I disagree with Ngozi and Gullah Geechee. I disagree not with their DNA evidence. I think that their DNA scholarship is actually right. I just disagree with them because the modern science has said otherwise, and I will show you the actual data. Our scholars sometimes look at autosomal DNA and look at layers and look at creolization and look at Bayesian statistics and things like that. But the fact of the matter is, historically, I will show that the modern Egyptians are not the pyramid builders.
You heard what he said? He's going to show historically that modern Egyptians are not the ancient ones. That's what he's going to show historically, not genetically. He's going to do it historically. He's going to skip the genetic component because he know it blows his argument out the water. So let me read it. It says, I totally disagree with the chief, anti-theist, the barber, the craftsman, and architect. And if somebody knows who he's referring to in all of this, who's the barber, I don't know. I don't keep up and watch every episode on Sonetta Studio. So I really don't know what these names are implying. But it says their evidence is based on scientific racism and misreading scientific data. And I know he got Ngozi up there, so he's mentioning Ngozi as well. And Ngozi is going to read the scientific literature. It says this group are African traders because they lack of reading. But you just said they're reading scientific. Okay, never mind. Ignorance and confirmation bias. What? They borrow scientific terms but have no training and do not know where to look for data that throws their thinking in the garbage. Okay, Reggie, your thinking is black people were there. That means we were there, or all black people are the same. Where's that in scientific literature? Point that out.
So is he violating the rules of scholarship?
Some would say it's not even scholarship.
Damn.
That was right on time. That was right on time. It's not even scholarship, Reggie. What you do is not even scholarship. It says, I will show the materials in this teaching and where to look for data that, in their viewpoints by the data. I have already shown they spit on Africans trafficked out of Africa under the murderous trans-Saharan slave trade. Africa was depopulated by at least 2.5 million of slaves and deaths. But here's the problem with that. When you're dealing with ancient Egypt, Reggie, this is what we call an anachronistic argument. When you're dealing with ancient Egypt, that's way before the trans-Saharan slave trade. That's way before the transatlantic slave trade. We're talking about 3,000 years ago. So why would you even bring that up, dum-dum? Why? Why? Because you're trying to get the audience in their feelings and their emotions. You want them to respond emotionally and not logically. All right? Let's keep reading. Let's keep playing this.
And so I totally disagree with the chief and the rest of the people that I had talked about because many of them have no scientific training whatsoever. Many of them do not have college degrees. Some of them don't have college degrees.
Who cares if they don't have college degrees? A college degree, and I'm gonna tell everybody that's watching this, a college degree is not a piece of paper that you get so you can argue with niggas online. A college degree is a prerequisite to land a fucking job. That's what a college degree. That's the number one purpose in America for a college degree. To get a job. You can study this shit on your own. You don't need a college degree. Oh, I got a college degree. That means I'm absolutely correct in everything I say. No, it does not. And Reggie, what do you even have a degree in? We don't even know. You probably got a degree in fucking dance or something and talking about you with the college. Shut the fuck up. You niggas always do it. Oh, I got a degree in Africana studies. Bro, that's like an elective. Who cares?
Certainly in the field in related studies, which I do. I have a honors in Black Studies and my undergraduate and spent more.
What I tell you, Black Studies, that's an easy degree to get. Anybody, I can get a degree in Black Studies in my fucking sleep. Now, if you would have said data scientist or something, I'm like, okay, yeah, this brother put some work in. But you said Africana study, Black Studies, that's a garbage degree. Garbage. And it doesn't take too much to gain that degree.
In 36 years on the work, but they seem to have a lot to say with no evidence, and the evidence that they put up.
And then also I want to say Africa Studies is not a BS. That's not a BS. That's a BA. He's talking about they're not trained in science. They don't have a degree. You don't even have a degree in science. You got a BA, a bachelor's in arts. Cut the shit, man.
I'll show you that it's misread. So we've argued with them in the past that population of history of North Africa based on modern and ancient genomes. This article they often use where they say compared with the rest of the African continent, North Africa has provided limited genomic data. Nonetheless, and it says North Africa has provided limited genomic data. Nonetheless, the genetic data available shows a complex demographic scenario characterized by extensive admixture in the drift, despite the continuous gene flow from the Middle East, Europe, and sub-Saharan Africa. Autochthonous genetic component that dates back to the pre-Holocene times is still present in North Africa.
He just killed himself. You just killed your argument, Reggie. I don't even know why you read that. You just killed. First of all, this shows he doesn't know the terminology. It says an autochthonous genetic component that dates back to pre-Holocene times is still present in North African groups. That's what the paper says. And how do we know that? Because the Ibero-Maurusians, EM78, these are E1B1B peoples living in North Africa long before any of this stuff you're talking about, trans-Saharan slave trade, transatlantic slave trade. We're talking about 15 to 24,000 years ago. You done, man. You done. And then it says the comparisons of ancient and modern genomes has evidenced a genetic continuity. And I can't see the next part because you got the arrow in front of it. And then it says Epipaleolithic times. You finish. I don't even know why you read that. I can stop the video now. This is how ignorant these people are.
No comprehension skills.
None whatsoever, General. None whatsoever.
African groups. So they use things like this to say that even though North Africa has provided limited genomic data, scientists can now say, even though North Africa has provided limited genomic data, right, that they can still come up and say that North Africa has a very, very ancient genetic.
Look, he confusing himself right now. It does. That's what the paper says. It says still existing in North Africa today. Coming from this guy, we don't even know if he is African. Like, can somebody force this dude to get a DNA test, man? Coerce this dude to get a DNA. We don't even know if he's African. He talking shit about North Africans.
Component that still exists. Okay, that's fine. You can't see it, and guess what? It died with ethnicity. Because ethnicity is the important term that we must always keep.
I told you this guy is not an African. This guy is a German. Look what he said. It's about ethnicity. It's about ethnicity is a social construct. So basically what he's going to say is these people are not black. They don't call them black. Who gives a damn what you call them, what you put on paper, what you categorize them as? Them people are already in Africa 15, 24,000 years ago. There's nothing you can do to change that. I don't give a damn what you call them. Call them white. You understand? Call them Arabs. Call them what you want to call them. Their ancestors were already in Africa prior to. And that's all that matters. You could try to do the semantic game all you want. You could try to invoke your racist leaders and heroes all you want. Like I said, Blumenbach speaks to these guys. He speaks through them. He is resurrected through these guys. Ruth said he can't even say ethnicity.
if the people there do not share the same ethnicity, then even though they may have some genetic components, they're not the same people because ethnicity controls who in fact you are.
Did you hear what he said? Ethnicity controls who you are. No, it does not. Your genetics does. Again, you're conflating a social construct with biology. Basically, what you're saying is you're kidnapping the children of our ancestors and saying, nope, these are no longer your children. Yes, they still are. Those are still the sons of ancient Africans. They are still the sons. Hey, Kedrick, you know what dumb people get degrees in? Africana studies, black studies. That's what dumb people get degrees in. Art and dance and all that other shit. They'll never get a degree in computational math or nothing like that, right? They'll never. Why would they do that, right? That requires brain power. But yeah, what this guy's saying, it doesn't matter as long as they have a ethnicity that we made up and social society has made up that does not fall in line with black, then they're no longer our people. No, that's not how it works. They're our people because we come from the same loins, we come from the same seed, we come from the same stock, we come from the same root. That's what DNA shows us. And you trying to push a European thought process. These people claim to be so pro-African, but they try to push a racial schema that was brought up and generated by middle-aged Europeans, right? Colonial Europeans, but want to claim to be pro-African. Yeah, right, man.
Another article they often use is ancient Egyptian mummy genomes suggest an increase of sub-Saharan African ancestry in post-Roman periods. This is a very important and popular scientific read that often is put in to say that the ancient Egyptians, the mummies that they looked at, suggest an increase of sub-Saharan African ancestry in post-Roman periods. It says Egypt, located in the Isthmus of Africa, is an ideal region to study historical population dynamics due to its geographical collection of documented interactions with ancient civilizations in Africa, Asia, and Europe. Particularly in the first millennium BC, Egypt endured foreign domination, leading to a growing number of foreigners living within its borders, contributing genetically to the local population. Here we present 90 mitochondrial genomes as a genome-wide data set from three individuals obtained from Egyptian mummies. Let me read this again. As well as genomic-wide data sets from 3 individuals obtained from Egyptian mummies. 3. The samples recorded from the Middle East span around 1,300 years. The ancient Egyptian population in the New Kingdom, the Roman period. Our analysis revealed that the ancient Egyptians shared more ancestry with Near Easterners than present-day Egyptians, who received additional sub-Saharan admixture in more recent times. So these scholars take 3 damn mummies, even though.
Hey, first of all, it said 90 mtDNA or maternal markers, and then 3 that they have full genome analysis on, which I know 2 of them are E1B1B and one's haplogroup J. And he said 3 damn mummies. Okay, since 3 mummies ain't enough, show us the other mummies that reflect on what you're talking about. Show them. Oh, I forgot, you don't have them. Shut the fuck up. Niggas always trying to bring up numbers game. Oh, there's only 3 this, 3 that, 1 this, 1 that. As if they got something else that holds more. You don't. This is what we have. This is the DNA information that we have to reflect that time and period that go back 1300 BCE. Do you have something older to show, Reggie? You don't. And when you look at those 2 individuals, the E1B1B and the one that was J, when you look at those mommies, they had SLC 2485, most likely white people. And that's what's killing you. You got white people in ancient Egypt. You know, when you're not racist, that don't bother you. But since you're racist, that bothers you. Trying to minimize what the information says. It says what it says, dum-dum. There's nothing you can do about it.
They say that there is foreigners coming into ancient Egypt. And then from the 3 mummies that they chose, 3, they say ancient Egyptian mummies' genomes suggest an increase of sub-Saharan ancestry in post-Roman periods, but they don't say 3 ancient Egyptian genomes suggest an increase of. So our
No, you misrepresenting the article. It says here we present 90 mitochondrial genomes as well as genome-wide data sets from 3 individuals obtained from Egyptian mummies. That's what it says. Why? Because the 3 individuals actually have Y DNA, and I believe the 90 have the mtDNA, which comes from the mother side. That's what it says. And you can look up the Abusir mummy records. There's more DNA than just that.
sick,
Matter of fact, this is what I'm gonna do while he talk. I'm gonna pull that up.
unscholarly people do not know how to read scientific journals. So you know what we do? What we do is we go to other white scholars, other black scholars, other experts, and we show that these Negroes of our own, who's in.
Watch this. It says here, present-day Egyptians are genetically different from the ancient Egyptians, and important research reveals. This says nothing different than what you just read. The reason why, because there's an increased sub-Saharan component that other article just told you, which was not existed 3,300 years ago in ancient Egypt, according to the mummies they analyzed. You're not saying anything different.
Affected by these diseases of intellectual stupidity didn't get the press release. Oh, you can get this headline. From the blog of Coptic Literature, Culture, and Politics, present-day Egyptians are genetically different from the ancient Egyptians. An important research reveals in 2019. So they use those other 2, but they didn't get the headline. So what does the headline say? The ancient Egyptians were genetically distinct from the modern Egyptians. Kills them. Peace, right? Peace. Kills them. Dead. The ancient Egyptians were genetically distinct from the modern Egyptians. The genome of the mummified individuals contained almost no sub-Saharan DNA that dominates the genetic profile of modern Egyptians.
What did I just tell him? What did I just tell you? The article saying the same thing that the scientific paper was saying, that since modern people have more of a sub-Saharan African component, they're different in that regard. That's what that article is saying. And you say, oh, well, this paper says something. No, it's saying the same damn thing based off the same database that they had.
Possible reasons for the high sub-Saharan ancestry in the modern Egyptians include, well, increased mobility down to the Nile and increased long-distance commerce between sub-Saharan sub-Saharan Africa and Egypt. Till the trans-Saharan slave trade is known to have moved between 6 to 7 million sub-Saharan slaves to northern Africa, including Egypt, over a span of 1250 years, reaching its high points of the 19th century. Y'all keep that in mind. So, first, present-day Egyptians are genetically different from the ancient Egyptians, even though there is not much sub-Saharan genetic data inside the modern, the data, all right? But the sub-Saharan would be genetically distinct from the North Africans just based on how genomes work.
Exactly, Reggie. That would mean that ancient Egyptians would not have that great of a sub-Saharan African component. That's all this paper is saying, just like the DNA paper was saying. Like, you didn't do anything but prove the point. Then you said over here, point 3 has been impeached. No, it hasn't. You just reinforced it. Thanks, Reggie. Ancient Egyptians did not have that much of a sub-Saharan African component, according to the paper you just read. This boy can't be this damn dense.
So they're distinct peoples, but this article looks at modern day, present day Egyptians, and they are distinct from the ancient Egyptians. And then they say the trans-Saharan slave trade is known to move between 6 and 7 million sub-Saharan slaves to northern Africa, including Egypt, over a span of 1250 years.
So that's how they're saying they got the sub-Saharan African DNA through the slave trade that you brought up earlier. That's how they got it. That's why they're distinct from ancient Egyptians, because that sub-Saharan African component was not there, but now it's there because of what you just brought up. And you don't even understand that that's killing your argument.
Let's read this number again. 6 to 7 million sub-Saharan African people was moved from their places to places like Egypt, Libya, and Morocco over a period of 1,250 years. Says to me that Africa has been depopulated. The sub-Saharan population that could give the evidence was depopulated and murdered and raped, right? And that the we have not studied the historical information that connects to the DNA. However, point number 3, which goes back to that first thing that these pseudoscientists, pseudos read, it says the ancient Egyptians whose mummies were studied, 3 mummies, were closer toward Near Eastern and European samples. Okay, so let's just see what other scholars say about that. Well, you don't have to go too damn far. You could just go to, Wikipedia or autosomal DNA. In a 2019 study, it analyzed autosomal makeup of modern North Africans of populations using ancient DNA references. Egyptians are found to share more affinity with Middle Eastern populations compared to North Africans. So that's what's said. Egyptians carry more of a caucus hunter gather group, Iran Neolithic, compared to the other North Africans. More of the Natufian related components and less of the Ibero-Maurusian. This is a term that Ngozi also always uses a lot. The Ibero-Maurusian related component to other North Africans, and also less of the steppe European hunter-gatherer component consistent with Egypt, geographical proximity to Asia. But a recent genetic study published in North European Journal of Human Genetics in Nature showed that North Africans are closely related to Europeans and West Asians, as well as Southwest Asians. Northern Africans can clearly be distinguished from West Africans and other populations dwelling south of the Sahara. Mohammed Titel in their analysis discovered that both Muslim Egyptians and Christian Copts showed a distinct North African cluster at 65%.
And what he reading, if he go read the Y-DNA, mtDNA, it will make sense what he's reading, because North Africans are intermarrying with people from Southwest Asia. That's why when you look at their mitochondrial DNA, it'll be U6 and M1. And even that's old. That's 15, 20,000 years old in North Africa. How we know that? Because the Ibero-Maurusians had that mitochondrial DNA, U6. So they've been mixing with Levantine populations and Middle Eastern populations because they've been traveling back and forth for thousands and thousands of years. So, of course, we expect to see this in the autosomal DNA. People use autosomal DNA incorrectly all the goddamn time. Autosomal DNA is not direct inheritance. It gives you your indirect inheritance. So, for instance, you have someone that's from Southwest Asia that has the U6 mitochondrial marker. You marry that woman. You pick up the autosomes that come from her family line. You don't directly relate to those people, but your children will have those autosomes that come from her great uncles, her great aunts, so on and so forth, right? That's what autosomal DNA is. It's also called admixture DNA for a reason, because that's what you get from admixing. Now, when you want to see who you directly descend from, you look at your paternal and your maternal line. Your paternal line is your Y DNA. These North Africans have E1B1B. They come from EM78. These are old North African markers, as he read in the scientific paper before that still exists, that's a toxins to North Africa that still exists in the people in North Africa today. He ran to the autosomal DNA thinking that he could get saved. No, you're not going to get saved because people admix. That's why. Don't you know you got E1, B1A markers in the Middle East, but they are autosomally 90% Middle Eastern and not Sub-Saharan African? That's because they've been there forever and mixing with the people or the local peoples. That's all that's telling you. Boy, I tell you, man, you can't be this goddamn dense.
This is predominantly ancestral component and unique to the geographical region of Egypt. You can read this and you can also misread it. So then, if you go to the articles that they cite, using admixture and principal component analysis, we estimate the average population of non-African ancestry in the Egyptians to be 80% and dated the midpoint of admixture event by Adler to around 750 years ago. Oh. So the modern Egyptians, we estimate the average of proportion of non-African ancestry in the Egyptians, moderns, to be 80%, and dated to the midpoint admixture to around 750 years ago, consistent with Islamic expansion and dates reported previously. The Ethiopian population showed, as expected, more variable spectrum of genetic integration. Oh, so when we go to the science articles themselves, what we do and we read, what we find is that the modern Egyptians are 80% different than the ancient Egyptians. They share non-African ancestry up to 80%. So when we start reading,
that means they're the same people. That means they got the same lineal descent, brother. You still not getting it. You still don't understand what you're reading, man. Scriptures say, in all you're getting, get it understanding. It's understanding without readers, right? And you don't understand what you're reading. When you see that they are comparable, looking at their admixture, that helps the argument that they are related to these people, not none related, right? So he read right here, the principal component analysis, which he probably doesn't even know what it is. We estimate the average proportion of non-African ancestry in Egyptians to be 80% and dated to the midpoint of the admixture event by Al-Dir to around 750 years ago, consistent with the Islamic expansion and dates reported previously. The Ethiopian population showed, as expected, a more variable spectrum of genetic introgression consistent with previous reports. The Amhara and Oromo were shown to have around 50% of their genetic genotype derived from their non-Africans. This is standard scientific stuff right here, because about 3,000 years ago, the Oromo and the Amhara had an introgression event of Near Easterners migrating in, right? So it's consistent with previous reports. The Amhara and Oromo shown to have around 50% of their genome derived from non-Africans. The introgress proportion in the Somali and Walata amounted to 40 to 30%, and the Grumus show negligible amounts of non-African admixture. The date of the midpoint of these admixture events is 2,500, 3,000 years ago, although one notable exception to the Oromo, who have shown evidence of multiple admixture events. These conclusions are consistent with previous reports and fit with the linguistic records. Furthermore, the distribution of maternal DNA and paternal lineages reveals sex-biased admixture patterns in the Ethiopians, such as these were less male-mediated than female-mediated Middle Eastern backflow. So there was females. See, he got to read this. Females carrying this Middle Eastern DNA, like M, U, and the other ones, right? Were coming in. It was less male mediated than female mediated Middle Eastern backflow coming into Africa. So females were coming into Africa, mixing with the local African population, meaning these people paternally are still Africans. This is the part he's not getting in his head. If you actually read the damn article, Reggie, you will see what it's talking about. Then it says the affinity of Egyptian African component with the modern East and West African population could be due to either continuity of human presence in the areas of recent gene flow from neighboring African regions resulting from demographic processes. So again, so when he's talking about the sub-Saharan African component, this actually talks about it, but it's going over his head. He's not understanding what thou readest, like the Bible says, right? You're not understanding it. They're saying that the sub-Saharan African proportion came much later. That's all they're saying. And the Eurasian DNA is pretty much mediated through females, not men. Majority of these men, that's why majority of these men to this day are still E1B1B. Majority of Egyptians, they have a large component. I think like 40% of Egypt is like E1B1B. You can't get around that. That goes back to EM78 that has an ancient presence in North Africa. You read the article earlier confirming that there are autochthonists to North Africa. Not newcomers, autochthonists, going back to the late glacial maximum. Matter of fact, let's read that real quick. Hold on. Just, because that was about an hour ago. Let me read that again. Hold on. Let me pull it up. I know I got it up here somewhere. Ancient Egyptians, slaveholders, origins of modern human ancestry. You want to be on B. And then we'll go into I don't want human biological. Let's do what he did. Let's become Wikipedia warriors, right? Let's just pull the same thing he pulled, right? Ibero-Maroons. Just type in Ibero-Maroons. Wikipedia. Let's just type that in. And then there should be a column for the genetic history. So he just read the autosomal. These people think they slick. Watch this. Then we'll go back to his video. Hopefully you guys are hearing what he's saying because I know the volume's pretty low. So go to the Chrome tab. Let's go to Ibero-Maroon. As you guys can see here, this is how old the Ibero-Maroon is, somewhere between 2,500, 2,300 BP around the last glacial maximum. And this is the area of influence of them. They were always in North Africa. So let's go down. Let's go to genetics. In 2013, Ibero-Maroon skeletons from prehistoric sites of Tafarot and Afalo were analyzed for ancient DNA. All of the specimens belong to maternal clades associated with either North Africa or northern or southern Mediterranean littoral, indicating gene flow between these areas since the Epipaleolithic. Again, this is maternal clades. So just as the article we just read, a lot of this Eurasian gene flow is women. It's women. It says the ancient Tafarot individuals carried mtDNA haplogroup E and subclades like U6 and M, which points to a population continuity in the region dating from the Ibero-Maroon period. These markers have been lingering in North Africa for 20,000 years. Let's keep reading. Loosretz et al. I always quote this paper, right? Analyze genome-wide data from 7 ancient individuals from the Ibero-Maroon I can't say that, Gross de Pigeons, I think that's how you say it, site near Tafarot in northeast Morocco. The fossils were directly dated between 15,000 and 13,000 calibrated years before present. The scientists found that all males belong to haplogroup E1B1B, Reggie, common among Afro-Asiatic males. The male specimens with sufficient nuclear DNA preservation belong to the paternal haplogroup E1B1B1A1, which is M78, with one skeleton bearing the E1B1B1A1B1 parent lineage of EV13. One male specimen belonged to E1B1B, M215. These Y DNA clades are 24,000 years before present, had a common ancestor with the Berbers. North African people are the Amazi people. They're autochthonous to North Africa. They're not invaders. They're already there, Reggie. The ancestors of them were already there. Berbers on the Amazi are an ethnic group indigenous to North Africa, specifically Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya, and to a lesser extent, Mauritania, northern Mali, and northern Niger. Smaller Berber populations also find in the Burkina Faso in Egypt's Siwa Oasis. Let me read that again. These Y-DNA clades 24,000 years before present had a common ancestor with the Berbers in the E1B1B M123 subhaplogroup that has been observed in skeletal remains belonging to Epipaleolithic Natufian and pre-pottery Neolithic cultures of the Levant. You're done. You're finished. We don't even have to keep reading. It says maternally the Taphoros remains bore the U6A and M1B mtDNA haplogroups, which are common among modern Afro-Asiatic speaking populations in Africa. A two-way admixture scenario using Natufian and modern sub-Saharan samples as reference related to 36.5% sub-Saharan African ancestry, with no apparent gene flow from the Epigraviton culture of Paleolithic Southern Europe. All right. It says where we at? The scientists indicated that further ancient DNA testing at other Ibero-Mauritian archaeological sites would be necessary to determine whether the top raw samples were representative of the broader Ibero-Mauritian gene pool. All right, from there, let me read this real quick because it doesn't take much. This is from Ethno-Linguistic Prehistory by George L. von Dreim, page 158. It says here, populations speaking Afro-Asiatic languages across North Africa bear various distinct paternal lineages, and the spread of Y chromosomal haplogroup subclade E1B1B or subclades E1B1B1 M35 and E1B1A M81 at the time of the last glacial maximum. At the time of the last glacial maximum, these markers have been in North Africa since the time of the last glacial maximum, have been associated with the spread of speakers of early Afro-Asiatic languages spreading from an area situated between the Red Sea and Lake Chad. Now, somebody in the comments said, oh, M81 is only 3,000 years old. Yes, but it comes from, it is the successor or the progeny of an older lineage that was already there 7,000 to 8,000 years prior to it. Let's keep reading. It says, situated between the Red Sea and Lake Chad. Y'all know what the Red Sea is. That's East Africa, and Lake Chad is Central Africa, right? Central Sub-Saharan Africa. It says some of the authors propose a relationship with the spread of these paternal haplogroup subclades in pastoralism. The distribution of subclades E1B1A M78 and E1B1A2A1 M123 indicate gene flow between what? Egypt and the Levant during the Mesolithic. Egypt and the Levant during the Mesolithic. They've been running through them areas. You know what Meso means? Reggie, do you know what Meso means? Meso means middle lithic stone. So the middle stone age, you had these people going up and down these areas from the Levant and Egypt during that time. And you have these markers in Egypt and in North Africa today. They've always been there. You are the racist. Because you're trying to delimit and demarcate people's ancestry and truncate people's ancestry and remove them. These are their fathers. These are their ancestors, whether you like it or not. You German. It says pastoralism is believed to have been spread as a subsistence strategy from the Near East through Tanzania to Southern Africa by bearers of paternal clade EM293, a subclade of E1B1B1, which is M35, independently of the southward spread of the Bantu speakers. Okay. All right. From there, let's go here. Y-DNA haplogroup E, E1B1B, and E1B1A from yourdnaguide.com. Jane Atkins is the one who wrote this article. She says here, Y-DNA haplogroup E with subgroups E1B1B and E1B1A is the most common Y chromosome haplogroup in Africa. is the most common Y chromosome haplogroup in Africa. You hear that, Reggie? The most common Y chromosome haplogroup in Africa. You're trying to demarcate and remove the most common haplogroup in Africa. It says it explores its deep origins, variant names, EM2, which is E1B1A, EM215, E1B1B, and EV58. Global spread to Europe and the Americas, and considered the best Y-DNA test for African origins. It's the best Y-DNA test for African origins. So when I told you guys the best proxy to determine who was a victim of the slave trade was a DNA test, and if they come up with E markers, then we know, hey, this is an African, this is a victim of the slave trade. Y'all got mad. Nah, everybody should get the money. That's y'all problem. Y'all want to spread the benefits for us to every damn body. That's what happened with the civil rights. Civil rights was supposed to be for us. Now it's for sexual preferences and shit. Because y'all don't know how to use actual proxies to limit that to us. Get out your damn feelings, man. Again, it says considered the best Y-DNA test for African origins. The genetic heritage of Africa is unfathomably deep and fascinating to explore. Haplogroup E is the most common Y chromosome clade in Africa and has made its way around many other parts of the world too, both anciently and also with other more modern migrations. We already proved that many of the people of the Berbers share a common ancestor with the Ibero-Maurusians, and they lingered in North Africa thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, 15,000 years ago, stretching to the last glacial maximum. It says, before diving in, you might want to review the concepts of SNPs and Y-DNA haplogroups here. Okay, good. Now we'll take a look at this tree. So this is E. Everybody on this line is related, and we're actually related to D because we all converge here at this point here, known as DE. What is this called? Mono, meaning one, phyletic, meaning line. One line. We are monophyletic, which is a group of individuals that share a common ancestor. That's what this line represents. That's what you get the word lineage from. We share a common lineage with North Africans. Reggie. Racist Reggie. Oh, they white. They not us. Oh, ethnicity. Shut the fuck up, man. That's late people talk. You claiming to be trained in science and you talking like that. Everything that you brought up was made up confabulation, man. The racial terms, the schema that you use, trying to use ethnicity over DNA. DNA shows you where your fathers are, who your ancestors are. And according to DNA, our ancestors are monophyletic. We all share a common male ancestor in the E family. That goes back to DE, which relates us to also to the D haplogroup. That's your Ainu people of Japan, your Tibetans, right? And some North Indians have it, East Indians have it as well. All right. Haplogroup E is old, having emerged more than 70,000 years ago, likely in East Africa. Today, descendants of this original ancient group remain highly concentrated in many groups of regions of Africa, like your Amazigh and your Berbers. It says here, giving insight into archaic movements of people on the continent. The less frequent but long-established presence of members of haplogroup E in Near East in Europe demonstrate other ancient migrations of the haplogroup out of the African continent. This is also most common Y-DNA haplogroup for current-day African Americans in both North and South America. Haplogroup E has something to say about the myriads of people over vast swaths of the globe. Haplogroup E1B, 1B, EM215, or EM35, which, as you can see, is going across North Africa, going into Egypt. All these places where they say they wasn't there anciently. Yes, they were. Excuse me. One of its most common sub-branches called E1B1B is defined by the SNP EM215, and these terms are often used synonymously. E1B1B can also be referred to by another SNP called EM35, which defines its major subbranch. EM35 was discovered before EM215, and almost all people from EM215 mutation also have the EM35 mutation. The takeaway is that the E1B1B, EM215, and EM35 are often used loosely to refer to the same Y DNA haplogroup subbranch. On the African continent, EM215 is found at very high frequencies in North Africa, approaching 80% prevalence in some areas across the region. These people are 80%, and they have an ancient presence here, as we just read in the other article via Von Drime's work, right? It says in the Horn of Africa, not only EM215 very frequent in Ethiopia and Somalia, 40 to 80%. But a high number, and here's the thing for all you colorists out there, if you want to go off of color, you know there's dark-skinned people with E1B1B and white-skinned people with E1B1B. You can't be this damn dense. Like the people of Somalia and Ethiopia, they're dark-skinned. They have E1B1B. It says, but a high number of different subvariations of the group are found locally too, suggesting this area is a place of ancient origin for the group. Limited southward migration brought EM215 to isolated populations in South Africa, and there was also spread of EM215 westward on long land and possibly maritime routes into Europe, representing the last major migration of ancient Africans into Europe. Haplogroup EM215 in Europe. The age of EM215 in Europe is estimated at 10,000 years, with the highest concentration found in Kosovo, up to 45%. Other Balkan nations, Greece, and southern Italy. This is very specific genetic subcluster E1B1B from its peak frequency in Kosovo, declined steadily westward across southern Europe. This expansion from the Balkans is the major contributing event to the presence of EM215 in contemporary Europe. And also this same pan-Mediterranean expansion, E1B1A was involved with. There was a paper that deals with the findings of Corsica, where they find E1B1A and EV13 together. That's E1B1A and E1B1B buried together. So they were traveling together. It's easily to infer that. So they both did the pan-Mediterranean expansion. Let me keep reading. It says this haplogroup has long presence in the Near East as well. It's demonstrated by its occurrence in ancient remains in the Levant and mummies in Egypt. You hear that, Reggie? We find E1B1B in the Levant and mummies in Egypt. That paper you read over earlier, two of those mummies were E1B1B. Matter of fact, let me go to that paper real quick. Let me see. I still got that paper up. And just to piss you off, since you're a colorist, we're going to go straight to the phenotypic analysis. How did these people look? Pretty much. Based off their genes, let's see how they looked. I already know you're going to get upset at this because you think you got this black and white dichotomy. Everybody that's related to us got to be black, and everybody that's white is not us, right? Watch this. This is that paper. Ancient Egyptian mummy genome suggests an increase of sub-Saharan African ancestry in post-Roman periods. It says here, estimated phenotypes. Finally, we analyzed several functional relevant SNPs in the sample JK2911, which had low contamination and relatively high coverage. This individual had a derived allele at the SLC24A5 locus, which contributes to lighter skin pigmentation and was shown to be a high frequency in Neolithic Anatolia. This is what we believe the region where white skin actually comes from. It says consistent with the ancestral affinity shown above. Other relevant SNPs carry the ancestral allele, including HERC2 and LCT, which suggests dark colored eyes and lactose intolerance. That's what the paper says. Oh, that's scientific racism. No, that's examining the empirical data and coming with a result. That's what that is. All right, and this paper says it twice. Hold on, let me get the other part where it says it. Hold on, Control F. Type in phenotypic analysis. There it is. There, phenotypic analysis right here. We determine Y chromosome haplogroups for our 3 nuclear captured individuals by examining the state of the phylogenetic relevant SNPs present in ISOGG version. The assignment was performed with reads that show mapping quality of more than 30 only. We derived the haplogroups by identifying the most derived Y chromosomal SNPs in each individual. Our analysis furthermore shows that derived alleles for the genes SLC2485, known to be responsible for partially lighter skin pigmentation, were present in both JK2888 and JK2911. For further genes such as SLC4582, LCT, and EDAR, we were unable to find derived alleles for both JK2888 and JK2911. For JK2134, there was no sufficient coverage after quality filtering at the specific sites, which is why the analysis revealed no further clues. So 2 of the 3 individuals would have had SL2485, which is a gene known for lighter skin pigmentation. These are most likely lighter skinned people. These people could have been white in ancient Egypt. So there's no way that ancient Egypt was just plastered with just black people and that's it. That's a false dichotomy. And you guys keep pushing it, man. Why? Because y'all using the ideology of the Germans and not using the ideology of logic, man.
Back it was big, you just don't know. Let me show you the past so your future can look bright. Help you walk into the light, help you see yourself. I've heard them say that we wasn't even there. Baby, let me make it clear, we were the ones. If you pay attention to what I'm about to show, there's no doubt that you will know we were the ones. And I'ma show you Nefertari was, said she was black because
that's y'all poster child right there, man. We were the ones. But you get upset when the papers come out like this. Hey, some of them Egyptians were lighter skinned, man. Just like Reggie, you're lighter skinned. This is the irony behind this. All right, hold on. Let me go back to that other paper. I'm gonna finish that. All right, so we read here that we see E1B1B in the ancient remains in the Levant and mummies in Egypt. And that was the paper that we just read. 2 of those individuals were E1B1B. The third one was a haplogroup J. It says today a significant contingent of Ashkenazi and Sephardi Jews belong to a specific subgroup of EM215 defined by the mutation EM123. So Jews have it too. It says supporting this as a major founding lineage of the Jewish people. This widespread ancient haplogroup has made, so hold on, so Jewish people have African ancestors. That's what this is telling you. Because E is an African haplogroup. They don't look like you, huh? They share a paternal line. So this widespread ancient haplogroup has made a significant imprint on the African continent and also many parts surrounding the Mediterranean. And then in faraway southern Africa, a notable satellite of EM215 is found in the Lake Tanganyika region of Tanzania and Congo. The E1B1B haplogroup has been busy getting around for a long time. You'll recognize some of the history notables that trace their paternal heritage to haplogroup E1B1B, including Italian Renaissance painter Caravaggio, the first in flight Wright brothers, Albert Einstein, U.S. President Lyndon Johnson, and the one and only Napoleon Bonaparte. These are all European-looking peoples, European morphology, white skin, the European nose and hair texture, right? But they share a common ancestry with us. There's nothing you can do to get around that. Here's E1B1A. Haplogroup subbranch E1B1A, EM2N, and EV38. Haplogroup E1B1A is an ancient brother of E1B1B, but has left completely different fingerprint on the world today. These branches split from one another around 47,000 years ago in the Horn of Africa, followed by the emergence of prominent SNP mutation EM2, which gains footing there. The SNP mutation that actually defines E1B1A is called EV38, but the vast majority of its members belong to the subbranch defined by EM2. And the reason why that is because the bond to expansion, right? It says right here, E1B1A is often referred to by the SNP name EM2 rather than EMV38. Even though EM2 defines its major subbranch, historically the terms E1B1A and EM2 were used interchangeably for some time. Because EV38 was discovered later and EM2 is so numerous within E1B1A. This naming convention proved hard to break, so E1B1A and EM2 still terms that are loosely used to refer to each other. Today, EM2 is the most common and diversified haplogroup in West Africa, 70 to 97%, and also has moderate prominence in Central Africa, the African Great Lakes region, and Southern Africa at 20 to 60%. As well recognized event called the Bantu expansion spread its language and also genetic characteristics from North Africa through East-West corridor and also south in two waves of migration 2 to 3,000 years ago. You see that, Reggie? North Africa, the locality that you keep shitting on. There's evidence that some of us come from there. Let's keep going. This movement displaced other population genetic traits with now very prominent EM2. Why? Who are the other people? Haplogroup B. Chris Rock is haplogroup B. So his ancestors was getting displaced by our ancestors. You know, many of the pygmies and other A markers that were around in those areas during the Bantu expansion, we were displacing them, removing them, killing them. That's just history. It says, in arrived in South Africa as early as 300 CE. M2 is found in Africa outside of the main path, but with much lower prevalence in North and East Africa, 1 to 10%. EM2 travels globally. EM2 also moved anciently into the Middle East. Anciently into the Middle East and Mediterranean island. We know they were in the Corsica Island. This has been proven. We find burials, and we dated those burials, right? This is how we know they were part of that pan-Mediterranean expansion we were reading about earlier. It says, seen today in low frequency in some of these communities, around 1 to 2% occurrence. Transatlantic slave trade also brought EM2 to the Americas beginning 400 years ago, with the strong predominance of the haplogroup in West Central Africa, 70 to 97%, where the embarkment took place. Many enslaved men bore the EM2 genetic signature and brought it to different parts of America. Again, this is why I believe if we're going to do reparations, we should require a DNA test. If you had an EM2, then that's how you get your check. If you want to get upset with me, fine, but that's the way it should be done to make sure other people don't get our money that's owed to us. And you can see EM2 pretty much spread everywhere, going up into Egypt, into the Middle East, up here, Anatolia, all over through via the slave trade. It says for about 35% of African Americans who perform Y chromosome testing, they find that their Y chromosome is of European origin. And I think Reggie, you might be a European. A lot of you pro-Afrocentric racists are European in origin. But we supposed to accept you as an African, but we ain't going to accept the Amazigh and the Berbers and the people that have been there for 15, 20,000 years. But we're going to accept your ass that go back to Western Europe. What the hell is wrong with these people, man? It says this reflects the now better knowledge and brutal practice of sexual exploitation of African women by white people in the Americas. For the remaining 65% of African Americans who find an African origin of their Y chromosomal lineage, the most common haplogroup discovered is EM2. The total prevalence of EM2 among males in countries in the Americas varies widely, but likely indicates paternal ancestry traced to the transatlantic slave trade. Again, that's why we should use that for a proxy to see who gets that money if they ever give reparations, right? And then they give you United States, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Nicaragua, Colombia, Brazil, Bahamas. So the Bahamas is about 60% of all males there. All the males are E1B1A. In Brazil, it's like 4 to 19%. In Colombia, 6%. Nicaragua is 6%. Puerto Rico, 19%. Dominican Republic, 6%. Cuba, 10%. In the United States, out of all the males, every single male in America, in North America, in the United States, E1B1A is about 8% of the male population. It says here, specific subbranches of EM2 and other completely different haplogroups of African origin are found in the Americas that can be traced to the same era of forced migration. A study in 2020 of a small establishment called Palenque near Cartagena, Colombia, found 4 different deeply divergent Y chromosome lineages among the small population of current-day descendants of slave trade. And guess what else they found here? EM123, which is a known Jewish lineage amongst the first free slave community in Palenque. We read it before in prior episodes. We brought this paper out. It was done in 2020. It said this is reflective of people arriving in settlement who were forcibly gathered from many diverse locations in Africa and then embarked from a multitude of different ports along the west coast of Africa. This same trend is observed throughout all of the Americas. There are some focal points of migrations from certain African populations, but this occurs against the backdrop of diversity of African Y chromosome lineages resulting from people being gathered from many African locations and then scattered on the new continent. Y DNA test for African origins. It says, what's the best DNA to obtain Y chromosome haplotype? Take the Y DNA test for family tree DNA. If you're considering Y chromosome testing with an eye specific to African heritage, consider the company African Ancestry with hosts. All right, so that's going into that. So I don't want that. That's going into DNA tests. All right, so we finished that. Oh, and this person right here has been in the field of genetic genealogy since its beginning as part of the Sorensen Molecular Genealogy Foundation. So if he pulled that, where do they get the information? We get our information from actual professionals, unlike you. You know, you're not a professional in the field of genomics. You're a person that went to school. You are a person that went to school for African studies. That's a laughable degree, man. Stop it. All right, let's go back to this video, man.
The data, then we find out that the headlines say one thing, but the data actually says another thing. Then we go to the other source, heterogeneity in paleo-ethnic population continuity and Neolithic expansion in North Africa. So here we go, the results of this conversation. 17 North African genomes were sequenced together with 16 sub-Saharan and Eurasian individuals, in a total of 10.86 million SNPs were called using whatever, you can read the scientific articles, but it says the first component, PC, according to, for 3% of the variation, captures the genetic differentiation between sub-Saharan Africans and non-African population, with ancient and North Africans placed in an intermediate position, right? So it says PC2 says splits, this figure, 1A, splits Middle Eastern and Europeans with non-Africans closer to the former. Regarding ancient North Africans, so in this particular period, this particular data, when you look it up, you're going to see that the modern North African population, right, is there's the former and the latter. So this splits that group, the modern, into the former, which is the Middle Eastern and Europeans, right? The Middle Easterns is the former. So this DNA study helps us to understand that the modern day Egyptians are largely Middle Eastern. Genetic relationships of European, Mediterranean, and South.
That paper that he just read says hold on, let me go back. I gotta go back, man. I'm probably not gonna be able to keep this under 2 hours like I want it. But look what it says: heterogeneity in Paleolithic population, continuity and Neolithic expansion in North Africa. What does continuity mean? Like, that means it was continuous, right? This presence. I wish it wasn't fuzzy. I would read this. But he talks about the introgression of Middle Easterners. Many of those Middle Easterners that were coming into Egypt was already in Africa before that. Again, we just read that they were migrating, moving around through the Levant in North Africa. I have another paper on that. We could talk about that. Matter of fact, let me establish that real quick. Let me establish that. Hold on. Let me pull that paper up real quick, because he got life all the way fucked up. We already did Van Drine, Portugal, Madeira. Where is it at? I want to bring this paper up. There it is. So this tab here, and then let's go to the part where it says strong candidate. All right. To bring up that Near Eastern DNA that he's talking about. Let's look at this. it says here, and the interesting feature of the Near Eastern gene pool is the genetic legacy of the so-called basal Eurasians, a hypothetical population that is basal to both Mesolithic European hunter-gatherers and East Eurasians. This basal Eurasian gene pool is also assumed to have no Neanderthal ancestry. It's an early branch of non-Africans that split off from the rest prior to the admixture with Neanderthals. Such characteristics are assumed their contribution to Near Eastern and accordingly to early Neolithic European farmers can provide an explanation for interesting observations. These include the apparent closer relationship to East Eurasians to be Eastern Eurasians to Ice Age Europeans than to Neolithic European farmers, and consequently lower amount of Neanderthal ancestry in present-day Western Eurasians than East Eurasians. So far, the early Holocene population from Near East are known to have been the highest proportion of basal Eurasian ancestry, up to around 50%. For example, the Mesolithic hunter-gatherers from the Caucasus and Iran, Neolithic Levant, and early Neolithic Iran. Expansion of these derived basal Eurasian populations and subsequent admixture with local populations is considered to have substantially decreased the Neanderthal ancestry proportion in Near Eastern population that changed from foraging to early food production. It is unknown where and when basal Eurasians emerged and how the Holocene Near Easterns obtained this ancestry in large quantity. North Africa, here it is. North Africa is a strong candidate for the place having kept basal Eurasians because it was well connected to Eurasia. From this point of view, Upper Paleolithic individuals from Tafarat are likely candidates as being direct descendants of or closely derived from the early basal Eurasian population. Early basal Eurasian population. Again, we already established that Tafarat individuals are already there since the last glacial maximum in North Africa with the E1B1B marker. These people were traveling back and forth. Why? Because North Africa is connected to the Eurasia. Migrated to the Levant, migrating to North Africa, migrating to East Africa, migrating back and forth for thousands, tens of thousands of years. And you can't erase that because you're a fucking racist. All right, let's go back to the video.
Another source: heterogeneity in paleo-ethnic population continuity and Neolithic expansion in North Africa. So here we go, the results of this conversation. 17 North African genomes were sequenced together with 16 sub-Saharan and Eurasian individuals, in a total of 10.86 million SNPs were called using whatever, you can read the scientific articles, but it says the first component, PC, according to, for 3% of the variation, captures the genetic differentiation between sub-Saharan Africans and non-African populations, with ancient and North Africans placed in an intermediate position. Right? So it says PC2 says splits, this figure, 1A, splits Middle Eastern and Europeans with non-Africans closer to the
Yeah, we got to represent Yap hard, bro, because he attacking Yap.
Africans. So in this particular period, this particular data, when you look it up, you're going to see that the modern North African population, right, is there's the former and the latter. So this splits that group, the modern, into the former, which is the Middle Eastern and Europeans, right? The Middle Easterns is the former. So this DNA study.
So he keeps saying, oh, there's a difference between the former and the latter. Let's do his Wikipedia game again. Let's go straight to Wikipedia, right? Let me share my screen. Go to Wikipedia, type in DNA history of Egypt. That's all you have to do. Type in that. It says the genetic history of Egypt's demographics reflects its geographical location at the crossroads of several biocultural areas: North Africa, the Sahara, the Middle East, the Mediterranean, Sub-Saharan Africa, right? So now, from here, I don't want to go to ancient DNA. Let's not deal. We already dealt with ancient DNA. Let's go all the way down. That's the 2017 study that he brought up. Look at all that mitochondrial DNA from Eurasia. These are all mitochondrial DNA from Eurasia. during the Abusir period. There, DNA studies on modern Egyptians, because he's attacking modern. Oh, they don't have nothing to do with ancient Egyptians or ancient North Africans. Yes, they do. It says genetic analysis of modern Egyptians revealed that they have paternal lineages common to other indigenous Afro-Asiatic speaking populations in North Africa. You cooked, bruh. You cooked. West Asia, Anatolia, and the Horn of Africa. These lineages would have spread into North Africa, Horn of Africa, and West Asia during the Neolithic Revolution and were maintained by the pre-dynastic period. It's all old shit, bruh. A study by Krings et al. 1999 on mitochondrial DNA climb along the Nile Valley found that a Eurasian climb runs from northern Egypt, to southern Sudan. And what did he read earlier? That a lot of these Eurasian DNA is female mediated, meaning it's coming from females. Sub-Saharan climb from southern Sudan to northern Egypt. Lewis et al. 2004 found that the male haplogroups in sample of 147 Egyptians were E1B1B at 36%, predominantly EM78. Predominantly. It says J at 32%, which we know where they come from. They come from the Caucasus. And G, which also comes from the Caucasus, T at 8%, and R. But the majority of modern day Egyptians are E1B1B. They're YAP. Majority. E1B1B subclades are characteristics of some Afro-Asiatic speakers and are believed to have originated in either the Middle East, North Africa, or the Horn of Africa. Cruciani et al. Suggest that EM78, E1B1B predominant subclade in Egypt originated in northeastern Africa, which in the study refers specifically Egypt and Libya. That's what it says. That's what it says. Other studies have shown that modern Egyptians have genetic affinities primarily with North Africa, the Middle East, and the Horn of Africa. To a lesser extent, European populations. So you can't erase that. You can't erase the paternal history. You're trying to rob the ancestors of their children. Modern Egyptians go back to these ancient peoples that have always lingered around North Africa and migrated back and forth to Eurasia and North Africa. That's what E did. Haplogroup E did that. And you trying to say, no, that's appeal to ethnicity. Ethnicity is some modern made-up confabulation that was, pretty much used to push the color code that you go by. Black, white, black, white. And genetics just kills all of that bullshit. All right, so I don't know if we even need to watch the rest of this video because it's going to keep repeating itself and then say, oh, they're slave traders and all this other bullshit. So let's see how much more we're going to watch this, and then I'm
Helps
going
us
to end
to
it.
understand that the modern day Egyptians are largely Middle Eastern. Genetic relationships of European, Mediterranean, and Southwest Asian population. So then you go and then you look at the data from this article, and you find that these that from Southwest Asia and from this period of the Middle East, you find more of this Middle Eastern stuff moving, East African, West Africa later, less. So when you look at the data and you analyze the data correctly, you fools, then you find out that modern day North Africans have a lot of affinity with the Middle East, and that we also know the reason is a lot to do with the trans-Saharan slave trade. And then the other article says about 3 to 5 million people were pulled out of sub-Saharan Africa into North Africa for the purposes of the slave trade. What we will get to later is where did they go.
Oh yeah, he keeps shitting on the Middle East too. Hold on, let me show y'all this real quick. We read this the other day. Let me see if I have it up. Because he keeps shitting on the Middle East. Watch this. This is why genetics is so powerful, right? Dealing with the DNA is so powerful because it just kills. Here it is right here. Tracing the ancestry of Middle Easterners. Watch this. Let's deal with the Middle Eastern population. So this was on Nature Asia, right? Tracing the ancestry of Middle East populations, published in February 16, 2013. This study highlights how Levant populations can trace their ancestors to an African father and European mother. A new study of the genetic makeup of the Levant shows that many inhabitants can trace their ancestry back to an African male and European mother. The Middle East was a gateway through which humans not only funneled out from Africa, but which witnessed multiple back and forth migrations over more recent millennia. And that's what he's not understanding. We had our brothers and sisters moving into Levant, moving into the Eurasia, and then moving back into Africa for thousands of years. It says in and out of Africa, as well as through to Europe and the Arabian Gulf. According to a recent study published in PLOS ONE, the complex genetic structure of the region suggests that modern-day inhabitants of the Levant have African male ancestors and European female ancestors. We just read about a few. The Jewish population having a lot of E markers amongst them, 30%, right? That means they had an African male ancestor. Their migration out of Africa about 20 millennia ago, that's 20,000 years ago, right? Females didn't always migrate with their male partners into North Africa. However, most males accompanied their female partners during their exodus to Europe. The researchers discovered these peculiar aspects of prehistoric human migrations by studying Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA, isolated from blood samples of modern humans living in the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. The genes on both Y chromosomes and mtDNA rarely accumulate mutation over thousands of generations and carry intact clues to prehistoric human activities such as migrations. The Y chromosome genes are inherited from fathers and can trace back to our prehistoric fathers. So the prehistoric fathers in the Middle East, a lot of them have African prehistoric fathers. It's just that simple. Likewise, mothers pass on the mtDNA to their offspring, leading us to our single prehistoric mother. The Y chromosome analysis results suggest that Middle Easterners harbor a gene pool with greater affinity to African fathers. That's what it says, Reggie. They have an affinity to African fathers. The mtDNA of the Middle Eastern population, however, did not show affinity to Africa. This suggests that when males migrated into North Africa, they left their female companions behind. The mtDNA analysis of individuals from modern-day Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan, and some regions of Iraq and Sinai Peninsula and Egypt, revealed stronger affinity to Europeans with little influence from Arabian Peninsula. That's what you're reading about, the people in Egypt. The mitochondrial DNA is very strong to Europeans. But we have a large percentage of Egyptians that have E1B1B, which make them descend from paternally Africans. They have African fathers. And you're trying to say, no, you don't descend from them people. Yes, they do. Quit the bullshit.
You members of the who are Africans descent, you are.
The Egyptians are African descent. We just read it, man. You done for. All right, fuck it. I'm ending this shit. It's over with. It's over. There's nothing else to talk about. The rest of the video y'all can watch on your own. The rest of the video, the volume's low anyway. But he's going to say that, oh, these people are slavers and whatnot. Let's end off with that. We did the genetics standpoint. A lot of these people are African descendants. A lot of these people have been in Africa for tens of thousands of years. We looked at their ancestors. We looked at their genetic code. We proved that they're Africans. We don't know if Reggie's African. Reggie need to go do a DNA test so we can even determine if he's African. He's probably a son of a slave master. We don't know until he shows the proof. All right. Last article before we get out of here for all of the slave trade talk, right? Slavers, they're slavers. They're slavers. What does this say, Reggie? What does this say? This is from Africa. Africa's a country.com. The slaveholders on the border. Why do people on the border between Nigeria and northern Cameroon refer to the Boko Haram as slaveholders? It says the Mandara Mountains on the border between Nigeria and northern Cameroon are among the regions that have most suffered from attacks by the Boko Haram. However, for the inhabitants of this area, this situation is not new. They instantly recognized in the Boko Haram leader, Abu Bakr Shekau, another dreaded enemy from the past, Haman Yaji. Yaji was an early 20th century Fulani chief and slave trader in the same areas of northern Cameroon and northeastern Nigeria where Boko Haram operates today. So these people are not anciently, but during the colonial time, they were selling slaves. These are Africans selling slaves. And we could go on and on about this. We can go to the Dahomey, we can go to the Fulani, the Yoruba, there's so many people, the Anlo people, right? All of these people were selling slaves. So we're related to these people whether we like it or not. Biology is not a question of what these people did. Biology is a question of who we descend from. Okay, so West Africans have their share of slave trades, man. They said today non-Muslims living along the border of Cameroon and Nigeria refer to Boko Haram as Hamaji, a term derived from their memory of Yaji's depredations. We will not detail here the story of Boko Haram, which has been subject of. And then if you read the corpus of Arabic sources of West Africa, West Africans been selling slaves. They've been selling slaves. Since the Middle Ages, the Sunniki Empire, they sold slaves. The people of Ouagadougou, they sold slaves. These West Africans are already selling slaves. That was a commodity during that time. All right. I'm done. I'll finish. I'm not going to finish this video, man. It's foolishness. Reggie, you're racist. And what you're teaching is not scholarship. You're trying to get people to appeal to emotion and not appeal to their lineage. We are related to the North Africans known as the Berbers and the Amazi. Whether you like it or not, they played a role in ancient Egypt. They played a role in ancient North Africa, whether you like it or not. That's what the genetic studies are showing us. And you have nothing to combat that but racism that has its origin outside of Africa and Germany. I'm going to end it with that. Peace. And if you got a problem with that, y'all know where y'all can find me. Set the debate up. I will beat shit down your leg. Play with somebody else.
Show from my homie KC all the time. Just did 10 in the pen. About to spit this game for you, fool.
These niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that.
I need me a lick to come up on 100 G's.
How be?
Moving these fucking keys.
Well be.
Run them in that UPT.
And who gon' run them?
The brother in my PG.
You gotta be.
And niggas my lady.
4 goes and I'm out.
Fell baby. I hit my safe for 150 G's.
Why, nigga?
Ordering for 20 keys.
Street value.
250 G's.
And what's your price?
I lick for 100 G's.
My people, baby, about to bring some heavy Snow White. All this coke, I'ma have to go run all month fly. Fuck breaking down 20s, breaking QB. Zip, lock 'em up and ship 'em to that UPT. Never seen a triple beam in so much, yeah. All this coke spells nothing but mail. 100 G's with ease, well let's go bring drama. I keep packing shit to get isolated with mama. Too many keys, bringing racks and gats and Cadillacs. But through thick and thin, yeah, got my bed. Niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that.
About to break these keys down for the keys. Let vamp run them all in that third wall UPT. KC drop this load on my BG.
10 a key.
Bring me back 100 nigga, get your shit.
Nigga, I got my shit.
Ready to cock your shit.
I'm ready to pop my shit. I'ma take your bread, introduce you to death. When you get the hell, tell him Uncle Pop you get mad. I'm tired of flipping these hundreds. I want flip some G's. Hook us up with baby.
Graduated the keys.
We gon' make this shit happen. We gon' flood them out uptown. And we gon' bring a sprinkle a little bit downtown. We're right legends with the terror. Momos on Camaros. Slim got the coke in the wayside barrels for 22.5.
Alpha keys for 11.5.
Come to the BG, I might do it for even 5. Nigga, I ball with people don't know it, cause I don't show it. The only way you find it is if you come score it, cause I don't stuff for no hoe and flow show with 23 codes. I get a bucket and keep it on the down low. These niggas don't understand that he the man.
On the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that.
Never out of money in a powder. Nigga moving shit uptown, the crowd. Who got the sprinkle to make your ass rank? Dope beans and old jeans, body tango. Chickens in a cutter supreme. Young hoes dream. Cash rules everything in town, know what I mean? Snow like Alaska, wanted in Nebraska. Bitch try to testify, straight blaster. Cakes in a ammo, modern day Rambo. Got a Glock with some rocks in a gram hoe. Got a Maserati, funky like John Gotti. Red beam on the scene, leaving bloody bodies. I got this shit wrapped up. Manny Fresh, the special man, aka Big Nuts.
These niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds.
Nigga told me that. These niggas don't understand that he the man.
And on the down low, I'm still selling birds. Nigga,
I told me that.
that's me. 1BG
Represent.
What's up, Larry J, Big Joe, KC, that L, Bam, that Mel, Callio, bitches.